Have you ever wondered why some supplements seem to do nothing at all? Today I'm going to talk about the difference between clinically dosed ingredients and what's often called fairy dust, tiny amounts of trendy compounds sprinkled into formulas just for show. We'll explore how to spot underdosed ingredients on labels, why dosage matters more than exotic names, and the marketing tactics companies use to distract you from the hard data. My goal is to give you the tools to evaluate products with confidence, so you can invest in supplements that actually support your training. We'll cover what a clinical dose means, what fairy dusting looks like, and red flags that signal a waste of money. By the end of this talk, you'll know how to separate hype from honest formulas. Let's begin by looking at why so many supplements feel like they don't work. Many people try a supplement, feel nothing, and assume the ingredient itself is ineffective. In reality, underdosing is often to blame. When ingredients are included at amounts far below the levels used in human studies, there's no measurable effect, so you conclude they're worthless. Meanwhile, marketing focuses on sensation instead of science, piling on stimulants that create a feeling even if the other ingredients are mere window dressing. This misdirection leads you to blame the wrong things. In this session, I want to show you how to look past the marketing and identify whether the lack of results is due to the compound or the dose. Next, we'll define what a true clinical dose looks like so you can compare that to what's on a label. A clinical dose isn't a buzzword, it has a specific meaning. It refers to the amount of an ingredient that has been shown in human trials to produce a measurable benefit. To replicate those results, a supplement must provide the same dose used in published research, not just list the ingredient on the label. Importantly, different compounds have very different clinical ranges. Beta-alanine requires grams per day over weeks, while huperzine A is effective at microgram levels. The key is that each ingredient has a minimum effective dose determined by the data. When you see a product claiming clinical efficacy, check whether the dose matches what researchers actually used. Understanding this definition will help you recognize when companies are genuinely delivering effective amounts and when they're cutting corners. Now let's talk about fairy dusting. Fairy dusting is a term for one of the more deceptive practices in supplement marketing. It happens when manufacturers include trendy ingredients at trace levels, just enough to list them on the label but not enough to work. These tiny doses are often hidden inside proprietary blends, so consumers can't tell how much of each ingredient they're getting. A scoop that boasts dozens of ingredients usually means that none of them are present in effective amounts. The end result is a label that looks impressive but a formula that delivers nothing. Recognizing fairy dusting is essential to avoid wasting money. So why do companies do it? Let's look at the business incentives behind underdosing. Supplement companies underdose ingredients for several reasons. Cost is a major factor. Clinically effective doses of premium compounds are expensive, so using less boosts profit margins. Label stacking is another tactic. A long list of exotic ingredients looks attractive to buyers, even if each is underdosed. There are also practical issues. High doses can taste bad, make a scoop clumpy, or require more expensive flavoring to mask. Finally, some companies play margin games, choosing to include minimal amounts to keep production costs low while charging premium prices. Understanding these motives helps explain why so many formulas are full of fairy dust. Next, we'll talk about the physical constraint of scoop size and why long ingredient lists are often an illusion. A scoop of powder has finite volume. There's only so much room in a single serving. When you cram 20 or more ingredients into that scoop, it's mathematically impossible to include clinical doses of all of them. As the ingredient list grows longer, the average per ingredient dose plummets. Science rarely supports cocktails of tiny doses. There's no research showing that a sprinkle of everything adds up to results. On the contrary, noise and filler often crowd out the actives that matter. That's why formulas with a few well-dosed ingredients consistently outperform those with long ingredient lists but no potency. Recognizing the physical limitations of scoop size will help you spot underdosed formulas. To make this even clearer, let's talk about dose response curves. Every ingredient follows a dose response curve, meaning there's a threshold below which nothing happens, a range where benefits increase, and a plateau beyond which more isn't better. If you don't reach the minimum effective dose, you don't get any benefit, no matter how many ingredients are in the mix. Some compounds like creatine require a loading phase to saturate muscle stores before benefits appear. Others, like caffeine, work acutely with a single dose. Understanding how each ingredient behaves helps you recognize when microdosing is pointless. If a product includes beta-alanine at 1 gram instead of the 4 to 6 grams used in studies, the dose is below the threshold and will not deliver the intended effect. With this framework in mind, I'll show you how to read supplement labels like a pro. Reading a supplement label is more than scanning for familiar names. First, Check the serving size. How big is the scoop and how many grams are in a serving? This will tell you whether there's room for meaningful doses. Next, look for exact grams and milligrams. Avoid proprietary blends or proprietary names where amounts aren't listed. If you can't see the quantity, there's probably not much there. Pay attention to active versus raw. Some herbal extracts are standardized to contain specific actives, so know what the yield is. Finally, compare the listed amounts to clinical ranges from published research, not marketing claims on the package. Spend a few minutes cross-checking and you'll save yourself money and disappointment. Now that you know how to read labels, let's discuss specific red flags to watch for, starting with proprietary blends. The first red flag is proprietary blends. A proprietary blend combines multiple ingredients under a single total weight, hiding the dose of each ingredient. This practice was originally meant to protect proprietary formulas, but most of the time it's used to disguise underdosing. Brands that truly value transparency list every ingredient and its amount. If you can't see the milligrams for each ingredient, assume the dose is too small to matter. It's better to choose products where you know exactly what you're getting. Recognizing this red flag will help you avoid fairy dusted formulas. Next, let's look at another marketing tactic, the clinically studied ingredient claim. Another red flag is the phrase clinically studied ingredient. Being studied doesn't mean the product matches the research dose. An ingredient can be effective in isolation, but if it's included at fairy dust levels, it won't reproduce the results. Always ask, how much did the study use before trusting a clinical claim? If the label doesn't list the amount and there's no reference to the actual dosage used in research, the claim is meaningless. Don't let the phrase clinically studied trick you into overlooking underdosing. A true clinical dose means replicating the amount used in the studies. The next red flag involves overloaded formulas with too many premium ingredients. A third red flag is formula stuffed with dozens of premium ingredients. When a scoop is small, adding lion's mane, citicoline, alpha GPC, and a laundry list of other actives is a recipe for underdosing. Premium ingredients are expensive, and there isn't enough room in a 5-gram scoop to fit effective amounts of all of them. Brands that focus on a few proven ingredients at robust doses tend to deliver better results. Quality beats quantity in performance. Supplements. If you see a label boasting many exotic compounds but a tiny serving size, be skeptical. Now let's examine a real-world example of fairy dusting to illustrate how underdosing works in practice. To see fairy dusting in action, consider a proprietary blend that lists 18 ingredients under a total weight of 200 milligrams. That breaks down to about 11 milligrams per ingredient if the weight is divided evenly. Another blend might list 100 milligrams of bacopa, leaving 460 milligrams to be shared among 14 other actives. No ingredient at these amounts has demonstrated benefits in research, yet the label looks impressive because it names many trending substances. This is fairy dusting, giving the impression of a comprehensive formula while providing none of the active ingredients in meaningful doses. Understanding this example helps you see why real efficacy depends on dosing. But sometimes lower doses can still make sense. Let's explore when that is. Not every active needs a massive dose. Some ingredients synergize with others and don't require a full standalone amount. Vitamin cofactors often work at microgram or milligram levels, enhancing the efficacy of larger doses of other nutrients. There are also compounds like caffeine, huperzine A, and bioperine that are effective in small amounts. For example, 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine can improve alertness and performance without overstimulation. Huperzine A supports acetylcholine at around 200 micrograms, and bioperine enhances absorption with just 5 to 10 milligrams. Context matters. A small dose can complement a bigger clinical ingredient as part of a well-designed formula. Now let's look at ingredients where dose is everything. Some ingredients require large, precise doses to deliver benefits. Beta-alanine works by raising muscle carnosine, and studies use 4 to 6 grams per day for at least 2 weeks. Creatine saturates muscle stores at 3 to 5 grams per day whether you load or not. Citrulline malate typically needs 8 grams about an hour before a workout, with some research exploring up to 10 to 15 grams. Betaine supports muscular endurance at around 2.5 grams per day over several weeks. These amounts are the clinically validated ranges that produce measurable performance improvements. If a supplement provides only a fraction of these doses, it's unlikely to do much. Recognizing these numbers helps you evaluate whether a formula is serious or just window dressing. On the flip side, there are ingredients where microdosing works well. There are also ingredients where microdosing is appropriate. Caffeine can enhance alertness and performance at doses as low as 100 to 200 milligrams. More isn't always better. Huperzine A supports acetylcholine levels and focus at around 200 micrograms, tiny compared to the gram level doses required for other compounds. Bioperine, which inhibits metabolic enzymes, increases nutrient absorption at just 5 to 10 milligrams. These amounts are effective and shouldn't be scaled up carelessly. Knowing which ingredients work at microdoses helps you avoid taking more than you need and keeps your stack balanced. The next step is learning how to assess if a formula is honest about its dosing. To tell if a formula is honest, start by looking for transparent labels that list every ingredient and its exact amount. Check the scoop size. Clinically dosed formulas often have serving sizes of 10 grams or more to accommodate full doses. Notice how many actives are present. An honest formula focuses on a limited number of ingredients and provides each at or near its clinical range. Finally, look for third-party testing or certificates of analysis that verify the label claims. Companies that invest in these practices demonstrate a commitment to efficacy and transparency. With these criteria, you can quickly assess whether a product is likely to work. Being an informed consumer sets you up to benefit in the long run, which leads us to our final points. Educated consumers win in the long term. When you understand clinical dosing and can spot underdose formulas, you save money by avoiding flashy but ineffective products. You experience consistent results because you choose supplements that match the doses used in research. Supporting brands that prioritize efficacy over marketing helps shift the industry toward transparency and honesty. Companies respond to consumer demand. If enough people insist on clinically dosed, clearly labeled products, underdose formulas will fade away. By investing in knowledge, you not only improve your own training outcomes, but also contribute to raising standards across the supplement market. Finally, let's summarize the key takeaways and call you to action. In conclusion, clinical doses drive results, while fairy dust only drives sales. Learning typical effective ranges for common ingredients allows you to spot underdosed formulas instantly. Demand transparency. If you can't see how much of each ingredient is present, assume it's not enough. Be prepared to pay for efficacy because quality ingredients at proper doses cost more to produce. Your training and health deserve more than a few sprinkled pixie dust ingredients on a label. By applying what you've learned today, checking serving sizes, comparing amounts to research, recognizing red flags, you can invest wisely in supplements that actually support your goals. Thank you for listening, and remember, an educated consumer is a powerful force for change in the industry.